Hello, my fellow Christian fiction lovers. Welcome to my mid-year book freakout tag. I can't lie, I don't like that it's called the freakout tag because I try to put a lot of energy in my life into not freaking out about things, but that is the name of the tag. So basically, this is just my mid-year goal check-in. I will be answering the questions to this tag, just kind of going over some, I guess, mid-year stats. And I am in this moment realizing that the list with my goals on it is in the other room, so I need to go grab that and then we can properly start. Okay, so this is my reading journal that I have not kept up with at all. I like stopped reading. I stopped using it. I've not stopped reading. Don't worry. I've stopped journaling about my reading, like using the reading journal. I don't know when I stopped. I think it was like back in March. Yeah. My last entry was back in March because I just found like I don't love this specific journal and I just like wasn't like doing what I wanted it to do for me. But I do still have my goals taped into the front of it. So I'm still accessing it for that point, but I want to do something different probably for 2027. I just haven't even thought ahead, but this year's been so crazy busy that I'm like, this is literally nobody cares if you do a reading journal or not. It's just like a for fun thing. But that wasn't a goal to keep up with it. It was just kind of an ambition that has not happened. Okay, so my first goal was to read through the Chronicles of Narnia and Lord of the Rings. There's 11 books total in those two series combined, and I am on track. I read through all of the Lord of the Rings plus The Hobbit at the start of the year, and I loved every single one of them. They were so great. And I'm currently two books through Narnia. I need to read probably one or two this month, but I'm like basically on track with that goal. My second goal was to read 10 classics. I have read two. I'm not doing great at this goal. I've read two. I've technically read three, but one was a reread, so it does not count. But I read The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton at the beginning of the year. I really, really enjoyed it. And then I started but did not finish The Grapes of Wrath, probably in like March. And obviously, I did not enjoy that book. Now, I don't know if we would count The Lord of the Rings and The Chronicles of Narnia as classics. Since they're going for another goal, I'm going to say no, just for myself. So I don't think I'm going to accomplish this goal, but it's something that I maybe would like to be a bit better at in the second half of the year. My third goal was to read 10 new authors. I think I definitely have read 10 new authors. I have a list of 9 that I wrote down of new authors I want to read, and of that list, I've read 4 of them. I think just looking, I don't know why I'm looking at those books, but like I would say I probably have read almost 10 new authors, and I have plans to continue to read new authors. So that's a goal that I see myself fulfilling. Fourth is to read 5 nonfiction. So far this year, I think I read 2 or 3, and I do think that I will accomplish that goal. Yeah, I read 2, and then I'm currently reading a third. Um, and I see myself, as long as I am intentional about it and keep thinking about it, I think I'll do that. Fifth goal was to do 5 rereads. I've already done 2 or 3, and I think I'll complete the goal of 5. I have a list of books that I wanted to reread this year. So far, I'm doing pretty well with that. I could do a little better. Sixth was to complete the Read Your Bookshelf challenge that Chantel does over at Chantel Reads All Day. I've kind of not looked at the prompts the last month or two, but I think if I looked at them, I would be able to say like I've done them because they were easy-ish prompts, I guess. The seventh was to complete Christian fiction bingo that Jeanette does over at Jane Reads. I've been very consistent with that. I think I've skipped all but like one or two prompts. And I've been really enjoying that one. That one has been really fun for me. And then my eighth goal was my total reads for the year. I wanted to read a total of 45 books, and I have surpassed that. I think as of this week, I've read 47 or 48 books so far this year. I had a feeling that was going to happen, but the last many years I have been a full time student. So I wanted to just set the expectations low because I knew I was going to be getting engaged and getting married and moving and all of the stuff. So I didn't want to like go too crazy with that. And thankfully I haven't. So basically everything for the rest of the year reading wise, I want to finish the goals, but also we finished the total number of books that I wanted. So it's kind of all just like for fun at this point. All right, now let's move into the tag. I am not going to go into depth about every single book that I talk about because most likely, well, for all of the books on here, I have talked about them in other videos on my channel, but we'll just do a little brief summary. So, the first question is, what is the best book that you've read so far in 2025? And spoiler alert, well, actually, I did pick one for most of them. Well, sort of. Spoiler alert, for a lot of these questions, I picked more than one book because why limit yourself? So, the first book I picked for this is The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp by Sarah Brunswald. That book was so beautiful. It follows an elderly woman who has entered hospice care, and the other POV is a young journalist who is writing her obituary and has to interview Mrs. Kipp, and through that process gets to know her, gets to learn about her faith, and this young journalist just gets challenged and encouraged. And Mrs. Kipp also, we just get to see the blessing of a life that she led, and even up until her last few days, we get to see what a wonderful person she is. And this book was, oh, I loved it so much. It takes place in the span of, I want to say, like 10 days to 2 weeks. I typically like a story to cover more time than that, but it was just done really well. And so I would say that is definitely in my best books of the year. I'm sure it might be contender for best book by the end of the year. We'll see. All right, and then the second book that I said for this is South of Somewhere by T.I. Lowe. Oh, actually, have that one, South of Somewhere. I've talked about this book a lot, but this basically follows a young woman who just got out of alcoholism recovery, a program, and she's just trying to navigate the world, um, being sober and trying to start a business and get her daughter back. And it's set near Charleston, but not like quite in Charleston, South Carolina. And I currently live in South Carolina, so I'm just very familiar like with South Carolina geography. So I was able to like pick up on a lot of stuff. But also, I just loved the way that mental health was represented, and there's like a slight romance in it, but it was great. Like it added to the plot. It wasn't distracting in any way. So yeah, those are two that definitely are in the top two, the running for best book of the year, if that makes sense. All right, the second question is, what has been your favorite sequel of the first half of the year? Hands down, In This Moment by Gabrielle Meyer. I started the Timeless series this year, actually just in the last like 3 months. And then I have also read the sequel like last month, and I want to continue the series because In This Moment was such a good book. I loved it. We are following a time crosser, a young woman time crosser who lives in three timelines: 1861, 1941, and 2001. And she has very active, great lives in all three. And it's very hard for her to make her decision. And it really, up until like the last few chapters, I was very uncertain what she was going to do. And oh, it was phenomenal. I cannot wait to get into the next one. The next question is there a new release that you haven't read yet, but you're really excited to? And I would say of the ones that have come out, I pre-ordered The Lumber Baron's Wife by Lynn Austen. And I would say I'm excited to read it. I I'm not like chomping at the bit to read it, but I definitely do want to get around to it like this year. And then another one is Daughter of the Rebellion by Jamie Ogle. I do really want to read that book. I read Of Love and Treason by her earlier this year, and it was not my most favorite. So that's kind of made me a little like hesitant to pick up Daughter of the Rebellion. but I still want to because it sounds really good, and I I don't want to judge an author by only one of their books, you know? So those two I would say I'm excited. I need to find some like renewed excitement. But most everything else I've been reading, just been reading a lot of like a lot more like backlist or not necessarily new books this year. So I haven't been necessarily keeping up with all of the new releases, but I'm fine with that. All right, next, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? If you know me at all, you already know what I'm about to say. Throne of the Heavens by Connell and Cosette, anticipated October 6th, 2026. I will be getting my hands on this book. I cannot wait to read it. I'm planning to reread the first three books in the series so that I'm properly set up to fully enjoy this final book in the series. Oh, it's going to follow the. So basically, all of the books have been following four different cousins. Like each book follows different one. And this specific cousin went missing in the first book. And that's been kind of like the continuing thread throughout all three is like they are somewhat trying to find their missing cousin. Some of them are like, no, he's gone, like he's dead. And then they'll like be little hints that they encounter along the way in their different stories that make them realize he's alive. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. Turning the page to what is your biggest disappointment so far? I've had I haven't had too many disappointments, I'm going to be honest. Back in February, I read Double the Lies by Patricia Raybon, which was the second book in the Annalise Spain mystery series, which that book I hated it. Let's just put that out there. I did not enjoy it at all, but I wasn't surprised by it. I was surprised that I didn't like it. I didn't love the first one. My actual biggest disappointment, I know you guys are tired of hearing me talk about it, but it is Love Amid the Ashes by Misu Andrews. Um biblical fiction or biblical what am I trying to say right now? It is a fictionalized account of the biblical story of Job's wife. There's not much said about her, um, except that she curses God and curses Job when he meets his downfall, and then eventually he has a new wife. His wife returns. We don't know. At the end of the book of Job in the Bible. And I could not resonate with how the story was written, how it was told. I have many thoughts about this book in other videos. So then we have what is your biggest surprise so far? I would say by far my biggest surprise has been how thoroughly I enjoyed the Lord of the Rings series. All three books were 5 stars for me. I was fully hooked and engaged with the story the entire time, and that really caught me off guard because not in a bad way. Let me maybe that's not the right word. It just really it took me by surprise. Like because I wanted to read these books truly just to be able to say that I had read them. I feel like they're epics, they're classics. Everybody knows them, and I did want to be able to say that yeah, I've read them too, and I can have an actual opinion on them. And my actual opinion is that they are amazing masterpieces, and everybody should read them once you're kind of like mature enough to get into a book like that. And you kind of know it might be your vibe. But then again, I didn't think fantasy has never been my vibe ever. And I am obsessed with them. I think that these books are going to be yearly rereads for me because I loved the story so much, and I love the progression of Frodo specifically through the entire story. Just the hobbits, all of them. They're my favorite. And yeah, so that was a big surprise for sure. Okay, a book that made you cry. So a book that made me cry actual tears. Like I was sitting at work reading this book and there were tears coming out of my eyes was The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp. We've already talked about this book. I was so emotionally touched by the end of it. It was so sweet and so sad, and I didn't want to say goodbye. It was so good. And then another book that made me cry, this one was recently, was The Way It Should Be by Christina Suzanne Nelson. I finished this book via audiobook in the car, and I was tearing up a lot at the end because of just some of the choices that certain characters made, and like they were very heart-wrenching decisions that were for the good of everybody, but it was hard and difficult to read, and it made me tear up. Okay, and then flipping the script once more, a book that made you happy. Obviously, I'm going to answer with my most favorite of all time, and that is Emma by Jane Austen. But specifically this year, I try and reread this book once a year because it is just my absolute favorite. I mentioned this in I believe my spring reading wrap up, but I was going through a really hard time at work. Just some things were happening that should have been in my control but weren't in my control, and I was honestly starting to get like depressed about it, and thankfully the Lord did deliver me from that and got me through it. But I started reading Emma the day before it happened, and then was kind of reading it like that was just the book I was reading while all of this like really awful stuff was happening. And I literally like for about a week straight was just coming home from work and like crying every day. It was really nice to just have a happy book that I knew I loved and adored to read every night, or even while I was at work. So that was a book that always makes me happy, but made me extra happy this time around. And then another book that made me happy, I just have the first in the series, but the On Central Park series made me so happy because I found a new author that I love, and just the whole series was so, while it was very like mystery and suspense geared and historical, it was, the characters were so happy and lovely, and I had so much fun getting to know them. So definitely not necessarily a happy like what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, carefree or like light story by any means, but it still made me happy to read it and also happy to like find a series that I loved so much. And the final question of the tag is, what books do you want to read by the end of the year? So many. So here are just five of the ones that I really want to prioritize. Spectres in the Glass House by Jamie Jo Wright. For a Lifetime by Gabrielle Meyer. Into the Whirlwind by Elizabeth Camden. Low Country Lost by T.I. Lowe. And Tea with Elephants by Ro- Robin Robin Jones Gunn? Yeah. Robin, I think that's what it is. Y'all know the book I'm talking about. Everybody has talked about it before. So those are just five that I would really like to read. I have a whole TBR shelf down there that I is also on that list. Oh, If I Run by Terry Blackstock. I definitely want to read that book this year as well. So yeah, there's a lot for sure. But those are just some that I have been thinking about a lot recently that I really want to get to. Okay, that is the goal check-in plus mid-year freakout tag. I hope that answered all of your questions about my reading stats. Not that you had any to begin with, but these videos are really fun to watch, and I do think I've talked about all of these books in videos before, but it's nice to just do a recap and quick summaries, and kind of, you know, give y'all an update. Let me know all of the other books that I need to get to in the second half of 2026 because I certainly don't have enough to keep me busy. But yeah, leave all of your comments, recommendations, your thoughts, all the things in the comments. I look forward to chatting about it. And yeah, tell me what your most favorite and your least favorite of 2026 have been. And then also maybe just like one mid book because I feel like this tag is very high and low, but it's not like middle of the road average. And I cannot off the top of my head think of an average book that I've read this year, but that's okay. Let me know what yours are. All right. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe. And I will see you in a video very soon. Bye!